I would not have lasted a half a minute at the Sundown Motel. I would have been in tears. Not investigate. They're not asked to investigate. That's the whole thing. Just gone into the mist. That's not right. A woman named Liv. It's the running up the stairs when you should be running out the front door and you're like, what are you doing? She is an English professor, and it says she's an exceptional English professor. Why can't I say the word professor? Professor. And it says she's an exceptional English professor. Oh my God, English professor. I can't say these words together. English professor. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse and welcome to another book recommendation video. So I feel like it's been more than a minute since I've done a thriller recommendation video. And I just-ish finished reading, it's been a little bit, Nunchuck Sleep. And I absolutely loved this book and it is such a great thriller and it just got me thinking about there's amazing great thrillers out there. I feel like I haven't done a thriller recommendation video in a long time. What a great idea. Let's do a video about thriller recommendations. So that's what we're going to do today. So of course I'm going to start with Nunchuck Sleep by Ellie Marney, which I finished maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago at this point. And I absolutely loved this book. So I had heard some great things about this. I had definitely heard it compared to Silence of the Lambs, but for a more YA audience. And I feel like this is like for some hardcore YA audience. This book does not pull punches or hold back on the blood, I would say. So I very much enjoyed this book and I think it's in a sort of like a tricky category in that our main characters are 18 and 19 years old. So like older YA, does new adult exist anymore, but definitely perfectly satisfying to an adult audience, speaking for myself. And I was so surprised by kind of how dark this book went. I was not expecting it, and you guys know me, was not disappointed by the darkness in this book at all. So this book takes place in 1982, which I absolutely love. There's not enough books in the 80s, but then I was like, oh, but I also read Malibu Rising, which took place in the 80s, and I read something else that was taking place in the 80s. So cheers to the 80s, you guys. But this takes place at Quantico. So the FBI recruits 2 teenagers. So we have Emma, who is a serial killer survivor, think Final Girl, and then Travis, who is a US Marshal candidate. And they are recruited for the summer to interview teenage serial killers because the FBI is trying to interview them, learn about their motivations, learn more about their crimes, kind of profile them, but not surprisingly, these younger serial killers don't want to talk to middle-aged FBI people. So they bring in these 2 teenagers to be able to conduct these interviews to try and help gather knowledge about their crimes and their motivations and all of that good stuff. Good stuff. So as fate, of course, would have it, they're only supposed to get involved in some cold cases, but then there is a current case that happens, and one of the teenage serial killers, who's like the most feared and messed up of them all, think kind of Hannibal Lecter-y, but he's not Hannibal Lecter, but kind of the ultimate teenage sociopath killer. This guy, Simon Gutmanson. What a great name, Gutmanson. And Emma and Travis wind up getting involved in trying to get information from Simon, and then of course it's a live case and then anything goes. So this book definitely gets dark. We've got a lot of murdery things happening here, talking to these serial killers, talking about their past crimes. Our characters, of course, have baggage. We are in the FBI where things are happening. But I absolutely loved this book. And I love the 80s part of it because it obviously makes so many more things a challenge, which I love the way, like, talk about a way to like get rid of like cell phones and all the modern technology, and they have to do the research and make phone calls and they're faxing things to people. Like, I just absolutely love it. And I just thought it was tremendous. So I expected to enjoy it. I didn't expect that I was gonna love it as much as I did, but it 1000% has that Hannibal Clarice Silence of the Lamb vibes. So I'm definitely going to be picking up Silence of the Lambs on the sooner side. I've seen the movie, I know the story, but I've never read the book. So I do have it, going to read it, but highly recommend this book. It was really, really good, you guys. The next book I have is my favorite Alice Feeney book, and it's His and Hers. So this one came out in 2020, and I just absolutely loved this one. This one was giving me multiple points of view, multiple timelines, the reluctant return home. We've got like twisted mystery going on in this one, and I just loved it the most. And I very much enjoyed Sometimes I Lie. I very much enjoyed Rock, Paper, Scissors, but this is still my favorite of hers, although I'm hearing that Daisy Darker is like best of her books. So we'll see what happens when it arrives. Pre-ordered it, it's okay. But back to this one. So in this one we have two characters. So we have Anna Andrews, and she is a newsreader. There is a murder that takes place in a town called Blackdown Village, and she winds up kind of being dispatched there to cover the case for her TV show, TV producers for her station. And then we have DCI Jack Harper, and he is suspicious of Anna's involvement in this case, and then he becomes a suspect in his own murder investigation. So we get a little bit of sort of the investigative journalist piece of it, then we have like actual police investigation of it, things taking place in a small town where Anna is from, which I should have said, which is why it's the reluctant return home, and it's why she in particular gets put on this TV coverage of this murder that takes place. So we get past secrets, we get like just all sorts of stuff going on in it. Really well written, totally fast paced. I was down for the complete twisty ride of it all, and I think Alice Feeney does a really great job of doing that dark and messed up character, which obviously is part of what I love about it. But I ripped through this one, and it just is, it says on the back, someone is lying and some secrets are worth killing to keep. So I loved it. I thought it was really, really great. So it's just like the ambition that Anna has. You know, she's kind of in a tricky place at her job right now, and she needs to like nail this coverage of this case. And we see the dynamic of her and her coworkers and her cameraman, and then being back in this small town, and then Jack as the detective and sort of his connections to the case. And then again, he becomes a suspect. And this is like back cover copy, but like not totally giveaway back cover copy kind of a thing. But I thought this one was absolutely great, and just you can't go wrong with His and Hers. The next book I have is one I've talked about pretty recently because I read it pretty recently, but it's 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. So this is his newest book, and this is his take on Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. And I think it was such a creative way of doing the isolated trope of strangers being brought together and being picked off one by one. So in this one, our strangers wind up getting a letter in the mail with their name on it. I've tried to do this in other videos. So they each get a letter in the mail, and it's just a typewritten list of names, and their name is on the list. And some people dismiss it, some people look into it, some people are curious about it. And what we know from the inside jacket, and again, it's not giveaway, it's the premise of the book, and Peter Swanson has given this as sort of the setup for the book. If you're on the list, you're marked for death. So these 9 people get this list in the mail, and then pretty much immediately somebody on the list is murdered in just like an obvious way that this person didn't die of natural causes. So one of the people on the list is an FBI investigator. She obviously is trying to figure out what is up and why she is on this list. And I just thought it was such a clever way of doing, like I said, the And Then There Were None trope. I love Peter Swanson. I think he is just smart and clever and creates really interesting characters, and his stories are really well written. I am always down for the ride with him. I read this one pretty quickly, and I just think it was great. So I have a lot of Peter Swanson reading work still to do. So I still need to read 8 Perfect Murders and Every Value Break. But if you guys are looking for some Peter Swanson in your life, this is not one that you cannot go wrong with this one. The next book I have is Simone St James and the Sundown Motel. So this is a supernatural thriller, and this is also dual timelines, dual POVs, and I loved this book. This was one of those books where like, you just never knew what was around the next corner. So kind of like when I was reading Pet Sematary, where I was just like, oh, okay, like everything's gonna be fine here. Like nothing creepy or weird or gross is gonna happen. And I'd turn a page and I'd be like, nope, all right, there it is. That's how I felt with Simone St James. You just never knew what was gonna happen on that next page. So in this one, our two timelines are 1982 and 2017. So in 1982, a woman named Viv wants to move to New York City, and she is making her way there, but she winds up stopping in this town in upstate New York, and she needs to make some money, so she starts working the front desk at the Sundown Motel. And she disappears. So in 2017, our main character, Carly, has never been able to let go of the story of her Aunt Viv that her mom would tell, who mysteriously disappeared all those years ago. So Carly's mom has passed away, and Carly is feeling just lost and untethered and like needs to do something. So she decides to go to upstate New York and try to solve the mystery of what happened to her Aunt Viv. And she winds up working the front desk at the Sundown Motel, which is still there in all its creepy fabulousness. So this book I just thought was so clever. It was my first Simone St. James, and I thought it was jam-packed with so many amazing female characters in both timelines. The friendships, there's some police investigation that's going into this, and just sort of the complete strength of these women, Carly and Viv, and then all of the women surrounding them, and the perseverance to figure out what happened, and the unwillingness to run screaming with the supernatural. Oh my God. I would not have lasted a half a minute at the Sundown Motel. I would have been in tears. So I just thought it was really well done. What a great intro to Simone St. James. She is another one that I have slept on for way too long, and I have a lot of work to do to catch up on her books. But I just thought it was absolutely tremendous, and it completely freaked me out at points in like that great freak you out at points kind of a way, but highly recommend it. What a great thriller if you like some ghostiness with your thrillers. If you are down for just a completely messed up female relationship and friendship and rivalry and all the things, Friends Like These by Sarah Alderson was such a great, like, quick, compulsive read. This is like, talk about like, what is it, like friends close, enemies closer kind of a thing. And like the terrible impact of social media it has on our life. So I read this one a few years ago, but I have not, it has stuck with me, and I need to read The Weekend Away. This takes place, like, not to switch gears, but here we are in Lisbon, and it's been made into a movie or miniseries with Leighton Meester. So I want to read this one because I absolutely adored this one too. So this one also is like best friends, and like they go out for a night out and like one of them is dead. So yeah, that works. But in this one, so it says, Lizzie hasn't thought about her colleague Becca in years, not since the accident. Then Becca's ex-boyfriend turns up on Tinder, and Lizzie's curiosity is sparked. It looks like Becca hasn't changed. She's still all over social media. Hashtag perfect life, hashtag perfect job, hashtag blessed. Lizzie can't resist a dig, but she sends her mean comment to Becca by mistake. And she's about to find out that you can't always believe what you see online, and that with friends like Becca, you don't need enemies. So this is one wrong click can ruin your life. So who hasn't done a late night scroll at some point, and maybe don't late night scroll with a bottle of wine and snark and start sending comments, because bad things might ensue. But I thought this was just so deliciously twisty and wild, and I read this one in a couple of days. Like, this was just crazy, but so fun. I love a dark and messed up female friendship, and like a frenemy situation and ex-coworkers, and it's just, seriously, one wrong click and everything can implode. Another book filled with messed up friendships is one I've talked about endless times on here, and it's In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. I try not to talk about the same books all the time, and I know I've talked about this book a ton lately, but I would be remiss not to include it in this video because it's so great, for one, and it has such great twisted friendship vibes to it too, and to me, just compulsively readable thriller. So we get past and present timelines here as well. We have a group of friends who met freshman year in college, and then they are reunited at their reunion, and senior year in college, one of the friends was murdered and somebody else in the friend group was accused but there was never enough evidence, so no one was ever convicted of the crime. But at the reunion, someone is hellbent on making somebody pay for Heather, who was murdered for her murder. Heather, who was murdered, her murder. There you go. Lots of words coming out of my mouth today. So it's dark and delicious, and it's secrets and it's lies. So this book is narrated by Jessica Miller, and she has always felt like second best in the group. And she didn't have as much money as everyone else. She never felt as beautiful as her friends. This is a co-ed group of friends that we are like following the story of. And she's always felt a little envious of everyone in the group. And she is committed to coming to this reunion and showing everyone that like she's made it. But Jessica's got plenty of her own secrets that she's also trying to keep under wraps. And it's so great. And I loved it so much. I read it the first time, I listened to the audiobook the second time. And I just think if you're looking for a great thriller, and I've mentioned it before, The Last Housewife comes out in August. So if you're looking for something to read as you wait for that, this is just great, absolutely great. The next book I've also talked about before, but I'm planning to reread it soon. So I thought I would talk about it again. And it's Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. That was weird. So this is the first book of hers that I read way back when, and I have since read everything else she's written. But I'm gonna do a spotlight video on her in July, so I wanted to refresh my memory on Jar of Hearts because it was my favorite of all of her books. I believe it will remain my favorite of all of her books after I reread it, and it is the book that absolutely made me fall in love with her as a writer and wake up and be like, why have I not been reading Jennifer Hillier? So this book, I think, is her at her prime darkest, and I was blown away by what she did in this book, because to me this book felt fearless from a writing standpoint, and I have so much admiration and respect for her as a writer. Never mind the fact that this was a compulsively readable book and a completely twisty story and has great characters in it that I absolutely love. But I just thought from a writing perspective, I was awestruck when I read this book, and I managed to like fumble my way through those words and tell her that when I had the chance to meet her at Thriller Fest afterwards. So in this book, we follow Georgina Shaw, and back in high school, she was best friends with Angela Wong and with Kaiser Brody. And when they were 16 years old, Angela, who was like most beautiful, most popular, all the things, just disappeared. Gone in the night, body never found, culprit never found, ransom notes never came, nothing, just gone. So when this book opens, it's 14 years later, and Georgina is like top of the world. She's an executive in Seattle, she's engaged to be married, and she gets arrested in connection with Angela's murder because Angela's remains have been found in the woods behind her childhood home. And this convicted serial killer, Calvin James, is found to be the one who murdered Angela. And like P.S., he was Georgina's boyfriend in high school. So turns out somebody did know what happened to Angela. And this book is insanity. So I cannot stress how dark and messed up this book is, and I loved it. I was completely here for the twistedness of it. I was cringing at certain parts. I was uncomfortable at certain parts. I dog-eared a lot of it despite all the cringe factor, but it's like good cringe factor. But I also was just so, again, amazed. It felt like such a bold book to me also, and I just think it's absolutely incredible. I think she's such a gifted writer. I think she's such a great storyteller. And similarly to how I'm doing a reread with Riley Sager, I haven't read this in the longest time, and I have no doubt this will remain my top favorite book of hers. But I feel like if you have read her newer works like Little Secrets, or if you got Things We Do in the Dark from Book of the Month, or if you had an arc of it, comes out officially in July, then I feel like those books, well, definitely very strong, messy characters who make very dark decisions and very bad things happen in those books. I think this is her most darkest, most messed up of them all, and I love it. So if you were looking to go even deeper into her backlist, I would absolutely recommend this book. I think it's just so perfect in all the ways. So I will keep you guys posted on my feelings after I reread it, but I just have never been I feel like it's been a long time. I shouldn't say I've never been, but I feel like it had been a really long time since I was so blown away by a new to me author's book that really just sent me spinning, and I just rave, love it. Another book that I don't feel like I talk about even a fraction of as much as I should is Lane Fargo's They Never Learn. So this is dark academia, serial killer. It's like so many things that I love. Multiple points of view, badass women getting stuff done, like being a serial killer and murdering completely crappy men. So this book follows Scarlett Clark, and she is a professor at Gorman University. She teaches English, and it says, but she's even better at getting away with murder. So every year, she seeks out the worst men and plots their well-deserved demise. And she has a meticulous planning ability. She 1000% gets away with murder. This is the premise of the book. I'm not giving away anything. Page 1, we know all the great things about Scarlett Clark. And she picks her new target, but something goes a little bit wrong, and her secrets might all be revealed. So we are following Scarlett on her mission to rid the world of really horrible men. And then we're also following a freshman named Carly Schiller, and she is just trying to survive freshman year, trying to find her grounding, trying to find her bearings. And her new roommate is like all the things. And she is super cool, she's super confident, she's everything that Carly wants to be. They become fast friends. And then they're at a party one night and Allison is sexually assaulted and Carly becomes obsessed with making her attacker pay. So we're following these two women who are just out to punish the horrible men at this school. And I was so blown away by this book. This book had been embarrassingly collecting dust on my shelf. I had no idea how amazing it was going to be. And I ripped through this one too. I thought it was clever. I thought the characters were really well done. I really enjoyed them. I thought the story was smart. I was in it for the fun and the twists. So you've got, you know, the serial killer trying to protect her identity. You have some police investigation. You've got this great, like I said, dark academia vibe going on and like all being set at school. And I thought it was just absolutely great. I just loved it. And this is one of those books that it just starts dark and just gets darker as it goes on. Love it. Absolutely love it. So if you guys have not yet picked this one up, I thought it was absolutely tremendous. I loved it so much, so much. And then the last book I have is another one that starts dark, grabs you at the throat, literally, and never lets go. And it's Bathhouse by PJ Vernon. I had heard tremendous things about this book sort of pre-pub last year and picked it up immediately, devoured it. And I just thought this book was just so smart and twisted. And I'm just such a big fan of PJ Vernon. I cannot wait. I say this, I've read one of his 2 books that are out. When you find me, I'm gonna read it, I'm gonna read it. And then he has a new book coming out now, beginning of 2023. The date got pushed, but it's okay. Just gives me a little bit more time to read this. But Bathhouse is about Oliver and his boyfriend Nathan. So Nathan is a doctor, he is out of town on a business trip. They've been together, I wanna say like 5 years. They live in DC. And Oliver is a recovering addict. He has given up some of his vices, but he still does not make all the best choices. So when this book opens, he is at a bathhouse looking to cheat on Nathan. And he knows it's a bad decision, but he kind of can't help himself. And he meets a man at the bathhouse and barely escapes with his life. And he spends the rest of the book trying to cover up that mistake he made that night. And it is so good. Totally twisted, totally twisty. Secrets, lies. We get multiple points of view. We get Nathan and Oliver's perspectives. And it just becomes like cat and mouse and secrets and lies and things just building and blowing up. And we get the history of their relationship and just sort of, I mean, it just, like I said, like it just grabs you from the start and never lets go. And like, this is a train that does not slow down. And just catch your breath if you can, or like just be prepared, because it is just, it's like a race to the end of this book. It was so good. I just loved his writing. I completely just fell for these characters, and it just reminds me you know, kind of like how Jennifer Hillier does it too. People are messy and people make terrible decisions and people have to live with the consequences of them. And I just love how in so many of these books, the decisions that people make, and you're just like, no, like it's the running up the stairs when you should be running out the front door, and you're like, what are you doing? But you don't always have the best perspective when you're the one in the situation. You can't see the forest for the trees. So I just love these books with these very complicated characters, and I just love the messiness of the characters here and in a lot of these other books just feels so profoundly human and relatable to me. And I feel like I talked about this in, it might have even been like an Instagram post or something, but even in the messiest murdery of books, I feel like I can often find myself in there, whether it's in an action they take or a decision they make or thoughts that they have. And we all have dark nights of the soul. And I'm not saying that I have barely escaped with my life from any place, but I just really appreciate how the very human nature of, you know, people make bad choices a lot of the time, and how that is woven into Bathhouse and woven into all of these other stories. And I just absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. I think he is such a talent. I think he's such a great writer, and I just can't wait to read more from him. But this one was great. If you missed it when it came out, now's the time. And like I said, just know he's got another book coming out in 2023. So that's gonna do it for another round of thrillers that I love. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know what thrillers are top of your list that you would recommend to other people. It goes without saying, I think. I am always looking for a new thriller to read. So ideas, suggestions, always welcome down below. But thank you guys so much for hanging out today, spending some of your time with me. If you're new here, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, do all those fun things. All my social media stuff is down below if you guys want to connect, be friends, chat anywhere else. And my Goodreads is down there too, so I go into more description on some of the books and my thoughts and feelings on them. And that was a lot to close out a video. So I'm gonna go. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you in another video really soon. Bye everybody.